The sky over Portland had that familiar gray she usually loved, cloudy, with the scent of rain soaking into fallen leaves. But today, even the weather felt too heavy. Clara stepped off the bus with a worn-out backpack and a crumpled piece of paper, the address barely legible, smudged by the drizzle. She checked the house number and took a deep breath. "It's gonna be fine. Just smile and look trustworthy," she told herself. She rang the doorbell. Once, twice, 3 times. The door creaked open slowly, like it hadn't been used in years. And there he was, Mr. Whitaker, sitting in a motorized chair just inside. Deep-set eyes, scowling eyebrows. He didn't stand up. "You're the caregiver?" he asked flatly. Clara nodded, trying to smile. "Clara, sent by the agency. I'm here to help." "Didn't ask for any help. My son did this, without asking me, as usual." She tried to lighten the mood. "Well, maybe I'll change your mind." He let out a short, dry laugh. "Unlikely. I'm almost 80. Nobody's managed to do that yet." A few minutes later, the two are in the living room. He's still in the same chair. She's quietly scanning the bookshelves, the cold fireplace. Everything felt paused. "My son's not coming?" Clara asked. "He's always too busy. The company, the meetings, his perfect life in Seattle. You're stuck with me." His tone was sharp, but there was something underneath. Maybe fatigue. Maybe loneliness wearing anger like armor. Suddenly the front door opened. Quick footsteps on the wooden floor. Ethan appeared. Dark suit, impatient expression. "Dad, you didn't answer your phone. He froze when he saw Clara, eyes scanning her like a resume. "You're the new caregiver?" Straight to the point. No greeting. "I am, Clara." "How much experience?" 4 years. Worked with rehab patients and... "This isn't a hospital. It's my father's home. He needs someone reliable." The words stung more than she expected. But Clara didn't flinch. "I understand. And I'll care for him like he was my own." Ethan paused for a beat, then turned to his father. "Call me if anything happens." "Oh, come on. Don't want to stay and see if she knows how to fry an egg too?" The old man snapped back. Ethan didn't answer. He left the room without another word. Clara stood there, in the middle of that cold, quiet house, feeling the weight of what she'd just stepped into. But beneath all that tension, she sensed something else. Something unspoken, waiting. Something that, for reasons she couldn't explain, felt like it had been waiting for her. On her second day, Clara arrived earlier. She had a bag with a few muffins and a warm cup of coffee, a small gesture of kindness. Maybe something simple could crack open that wall a little. But Mr. Whitaker barely looked at her. "Brought this thinking you could buy me off," he muttered, eyeing the coffee like it was poison. Clara gave a small, awkward laugh. "No, it's cold out there. I thought maybe you liked blueberry." He didn't reply, just turned his face away and turned on the TV. Clara sat on the couch across from him, unsure whether to push or respect the silence. The room was packed with quiet memories, old pictures, a loud ticking clock, and a dusty photo album sitting untouched on a shelf. She glanced at the closed piano. "Did you used to play?" He answered without looking at her. That was a lifetime ago. Short. Final. But Clara could feel there was more pain than apathy in those words. By noon, she had lunch ready. Simple rice, grilled chicken, steamed veggies. "Hospital food," he muttered after one bite. "It's just a start. I'll get better." He slowly pushed the plate away. "If you want to please me, stop trying." Clara took a deep breath. It wasn't about her. She knew that. Later, when Ethan stopped by for one of his flash visits, the air was already thick. "How's he been?" he asked, looking straight at Clara, like someone who doesn't want anyone around. Ethan gave a bitter half-smile. "Then he's just being himself." She almost asked why he even kept her there, but something in his eyes said, "It's not about care. It's about guilt." That night, Clara left with a strange feeling in her chest. It wasn't rejection she felt, it was grief. But not the kind that comes from losing someone. The kind that comes from watching someone give up on being touched. The house felt bigger in the morning, and colder too. Clara entered quietly, like she didn't want to wake any ghosts. Mr. Whitaker was asleep in his chair, the TV on mute. The only sounds were the ticking clock and the soft creak of the chair when he took a deep breath. She moved carefully to the kitchen, made coffee. The smell filled the house like a shy invitation. When he woke up, he didn't say anything, just looked at the cup in front of him and slowly pushed it away, like the day before. But this time, no sarcastic comment. Clara took that as progress. Later, while dusting the shelves in the living room, she spotted a framed photo, a smiling woman next to a much younger Ethan, lighter, softer than the man he'd become. "Your wife?" she asked, gently turning the frame. He hesitated, took a deep breath, then said, "She used to laugh, even when I was impossible." Clara smiled. Then she must have been a saint. She was, still is, just not here anymore. It was the first time his voice cracked. Clara didn't reply, just kept cleaning, a little slower now. That afternoon, she found an old notebook behind the couch. It was a music journal, handwritten notes, scribbles, a half-finished score titled, "For Ellie." She looked toward the piano. "You wrote this?" He turned his face away, but didn't deny it. "Don't touch that piano. Ever again." Clara nodded. Not the time. But she knew. That song still wanted to be heard. That evening, as she walked away from the house, she carried with her a strange truth. Sometimes, the loudest silence comes from within the home. It was just another Tuesday, but the atmosphere in the house felt off. Mr. Whitaker was quieter than usual, and that was saying a lot. Clara made the coffee in silence, as she'd learned. But something wasn't right. His hands were shaking more than usual. She urged him to eat. He refused. "I'm not hungry." "You still need to eat. You'll end up fainting." He didn't reply. But he didn't touch the food either. By early afternoon, Clara decided to call Ethan. "Sorry to bother you, but I don't think your dad's doing well. He's weak, and he's refusing to eat." The response came cold and sharp. "If he doesn't want to eat, then he doesn't eat. You're the caregiver, not a babysitter." Clara closed her eyes, counted to 3. "He's shaking, Ethan. This isn't stubbornness. He needs help." A few minutes later, Ethan showed up. Expensive suit, tense face. The air shifted the moment he walked in. "Dad, why aren't you eating?" "Because I don't want to, and I'm not a child." Ethan turned to Clara, clearly annoyed. "You can't even manage this?" His voice was rising. Clara felt her cheeks burn. She stood up slowly. "I've been here trying, every day, alone. But some things, only a son can fix." That hit hard. Ethan was silent for a beat. "You think I don't try? That it's easy seeing him like this?" "I think you haven't really looked at him in a long time." Silence. Mr. Whitaker coughed in the background, breaking the tension. Ethan took a deep breath, stared at Clara for a moment, and muttered, "If he gets worse, let me know." He left without waiting for an answer. Clara stood there, hands still shaking. Heart, even more. That day she realized, sometimes the biggest gap between two people is what they pretend not to see. The next morning, Clara walked in with lighter steps, even though yesterday's tension still lingered in the air. Mr. Whitaker was already awake, sitting by the window, staring at the empty street. She didn't say anything, just placed a cup of coffee beside him and stepped away. He looked at her for a few seconds, silent, then picked up the cup. No complaints, no resistance. "Thanks for yesterday," he said, almost under his breath. Clara froze, surprised. For what? For not giving up. It was the first time his eyes looked less hard, still tired, but alive. Later, as she organized his medication, she noticed his hands trembling more than usual. "Want some help?" He hesitated. Pride and vulnerability wrestled in the air. Then he held out his hand. She stepped closer and gently held it. In that small gesture, everything shifted. It wasn't the touch. It was the permission, the surrender. It was like he was saying, "All right, stay." Ethan showed up at the end of the day, unannounced. Clara was in the kitchen making tea. When she returned, she found father and son sitting together. No shouting, no tension. "He told me you've been holding your ground," Ethan said. Clara nodded, simply. Then Mr. Whitaker mumbled something she never expected to hear. "She's not just a caregiver, she's a person." That night, Clara walked home with tears in her eyes. Not just for him, for herself too. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she belonged. The day was gray. So was the house. But inside, Clara felt something starting to bloom again. While cleaning the living room, she glanced once more at the piano. That closed lid felt like it was hiding more than keys. It was holding a part of the house's soul. Mr. Whitaker, across the room, was watching the news without really watching. "I've been thinking about that sheet for Ellie," she said gently. He sighed, didn't answer right away. "It was the piece I wanted to play for her birthday, but she was gone before I finished it." Clara stepped closer. "You never completed it?" "I couldn't. Every time I tried, it felt like she was in the room, and I wasn't ready to hear her." Clara sat at the piano bench, opened the lid carefully, like it was something sacred. "Can I try playing it?" "Just slowly." He hesitated, then gave a faint nod. The first notes came out soft, unsure. But there was something in them, an unfinished melody finding its way back. Mr. Whitaker closed his eyes, said nothing, but a single tear slipped down his cheek. Later that afternoon, Ethan arrived. He looked more tired than usual. When he heard the piano, he stopped in the doorway. For a moment, he was just a boy again, listening to his father play. Clara noticed his face and asked later in the kitchen, "You knew that song?" Ethan smiled, a little shy. "I used to fall asleep to it. My mom said it was the only thing that calmed me down." That night, the house wasn't silent anymore. It had music, and memories, returning, asking to be felt again. It was the kind of night no one plans for, a lightning strike nearby. And just like that, the power went out. Darkness. Silence. The distant sound of heavy rain hitting the roof. Clara lit a candle and walked to the living room. "Everything okay in here?" she asked. Mr. Whitaker was calm, seated in his usual spot. "Been through worse blackouts. Once spent 3 days without power, back in '76. She smiled. "Then you'll survive this one. If you bring me tea, maybe." Later, Clara brought him a cup, then walked into the kitchen and found Ethan leaning against the doorframe, suit damp, eyes far away. "Got caught in the rain?" she asked. "Car stalled 2 blocks away. I had to walk." The house generator didn't kick in, so it was candles and conversation with nowhere to hide. They sat at the kitchen table, first time facing each other, without their walls. "Have you always been this closed off?" Clara asked. Ethan let out a small laugh. "Not always. I think it just happened. Because of your father? Because of everything." Silence. He stared at the candle between them. The flame trembled like it was listening. "I was really close to my mom. When she died, it felt like half the house went with her. And the rest, well, the rest turned into silence." Clara didn't respond, just stayed, present, not trying to fix anything. He sighed. "Thanks for still being here." She looked him in the eyes, for the first time, without fear. "I needed somewhere I could stay too." That night, no lights came back. But something inside both of them began to turn on. The sound of the piano still lingered in the house, even days later. But that morning, the silence came back, heavier than before. Mr. Whitaker didn't come out of his room. Clara found it odd. She knocked on the door. "Good morning. Everything okay in there?" Nothing. She slowly opened the door. He was lying down, paler than usual, struggling to breathe. "Mr. Whitaker, can you hear me?" He moved his head slightly, but he was too weak to speak. Clara didn't hesitate. She grabbed her phone and called Ethan directly. "Your dad's had a relapse. He's very weak. You need to come now." Ethan arrived fast. No suit, no attitude, just a worried son, a version Clara hadn't seen yet. Together, they got him to the hospital. Hours later, in the waiting room, Clara sat beside Ethan, both silent, until he finally spoke, eyes fixed on the floor. "I should have come more, listened more, done more." "He's still here, Ethan." He shook his head, like trying to forgive himself, and failing. "You know what's worse? I thought he didn't feel anything anymore. But he does. He just doesn't show it." Clara reached out and held his hand. For the first time, we only feel pain when we still care. Later that night, the doctors gave the okay. Mr. Whitaker could go home the next day. Ethan looked at Clara with a different expression. It wasn't just gratitude, it was something deeper. "If it weren't for you," she smiled, cutting him off. "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." That night, for the first time, Ethan stayed by his father's side. The sound of the piano still lingered in the house, even days later. But that morning, the silence came back, heavier than before. Mr. Whitaker didn't come out of his room. Clara found it odd. She knocked on the door. "Good morning. Everything okay in there?" Nothing. She slowly opened the door. He was lying down, paler than usual, struggling to breathe. "Mr. Whitaker, can you hear me?" He moved his head slightly, but he was too weak to speak. Clara didn't hesitate. She grabbed her phone and called Ethan directly. "Your dad's had a relapse. He's very weak. You need to come now." Ethan arrived fast. No suit, no attitude, just a worried son, a version Clara hadn't seen yet. Together, they got him to the hospital. Hours later, in the waiting room, Clara sat beside Ethan, both silent, until he finally spoke, eyes fixed on the floor. "I should have come more, listened more, done more." "He's still here, Ethan." He shook his head, like trying to forgive himself, and failing. "You know what's worse? I thought he didn't feel anything anymore. But he does. He just doesn't show it." Clara reached out and held his hand. For the first time, we only feel pain when we still care. Later that night, the doctors gave the okay. Mr. Whitaker could go home the next day. Ethan looked at Clara with a different expression. It wasn't just gratitude, it was something deeper. "If it weren't for you," she smiled, cutting him off. "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." That night, for the first time, Ethan stayed by his father's side. On the morning he passed, the house was completely silent. No piano, no TV, no voices. Clara walked in slowly, like time itself had slowed down. She found Ethan in the living room, sitting beside the empty chair, eyes red, but calm. "He went peacefully," he said, barely above a whisper. Clara walked closer, placed her hand on his shoulder. It wasn't a time for words, it was a time for feeling. Later, as she helped gather some of his things, Clara found an envelope with her name, handwritten. Inside, a note. "Thank you for staying until the end, for seeing past the stubborn old man, for bringing Ellie back, even if just for a few chords. H." She read it slowly, then read it again, and cried. Days later, Ethan showed up at her door, no warning, with an envelope in hand. I found this among his things. It was a second letter, addressed to Ethan. "Son, love isn't what we say, it's what we allow ourselves to feel. Don't miss it again. She's light, and you need to stop running from the sun." Ethan looked at Clara and smiled, a smile full of everything he'd never said, until now. He stepped forward. She didn't step back. The house was silent, but inside them, there was music.